So, it's almost Easter. It's the holiest time of the year for Christians. It's a time when lots of people go to church beyond the ones that normally go week in, week out. But we're in lockdown. The church buildings are closed. What can we do? Does that mean that church is shut? Does that mean there's no Christianity this Easter? Well, if you are looking to go to church, the good news is it's probably even easier than normal to attend church this Easter. You don't need to wear your Sunday best and your Easter bonnet. You can join in your pyjamas from the sofa in your living room. I'm Andrew Davies. I'm reader in the Public Understanding of Religion at the University of Birmingham, where I direct the Edward Cadbury Centre for the Public Understanding of Religion. We work in religion and public life and policy. We focus on the practical impact that faith has for people in everyday life, how it influences their everyday decisions. And at the moment, everyday life is impacting faith, at least faith communities. It's not safe to gather in buildings. We can't get together in churches, mosques, and synagogues. But for Christians, church has never been just a building, it's always been a community. And those communities are finding other ways of gathering at this time of our life by going online. I'm working with a team led by Professor John Bryson from Birmingham Business School to look at how COVID-19 has disrupted church and sparked innovation. And from the moment it was announced a few weeks back that we needed to stay in, that the country was in lockdown, churches and all kinds of other faith communities have come up with some really creative ways of continuing to engage with their congregation. If they go online, there are various choices that they've got. They can choose to go for a live service or a pre-recorded service. They can go for what we might call a synchronous service where everybody's watching together at the same time, or a more asynchronous event where something's posted on a page, Facebook, Instagram, or something like that, and people can go and engage and interact with that as and when they want at whatever stage. It can be more interactive, so you could do a Facebook Live post, for instance, where people can type comments back to you, and sometimes the person who's leading the service will interact with those comments, read them out, or respond to them, or something like that. Or it can be more presentational, where basically a person is stood at the front communicating information for you to read and go and think about later on. The quality of all of this interaction has been very different as well, ranging from broadcast quality at the highest level to slightly less sophisticated production. You can get really good quality just from a straightforward phone these days, but even just sticking a phone in front of a minister as she or he is leading the service, that's been done pretty frequently. That is pushing the limits of some clergy technical expertise. I'm sure many of us saw and smirked a little bit at that Italian priest who managed to turn the Snapchat filters on his live broadcast of Mass. Or perhaps you saw the vicar who set fire to himself whilst lighting candles in his church. Lots of different things are happening. Lots of different things can be done by faith communities to try and build engagement and try and sustain opportunities to talk to members of their congregation at this particular time. There are some challenges, of course. One of them is, what do you do about the music? So some of the churches that had really good broadcast TV programs before, the mega churches, churches with more than 2,000 members, used to do regular broadcasts over Christian television, also over the internet. Many of those have now gone more acoustic and done much more small scale stuff, or used services they pre-recorded in the past. Lots of churches that have much smaller worship teams have gone even more acoustic. We've got this really interesting phenomenon that might be called living room worship, where sometimes you get just a single person sat at the piano or sat with a guitar in their living room leading corporate singing. What do you do about the building? That's a challenge as well. The Church of England generally has advised that churches shouldn't be used. In the very first few days, churches were used for private prayer. Many clergy went into their churches and recorded worship in there that was then broadcast over the internet. But the current Church of England advice is that shouldn't happen. So all of a sudden, the vicarage is coming into a new position of prominence and is being used by kind of church leaders as the base of the church, broadcasting from their kitchen or from their office. That's happening increasingly frequently. And so the whole tone of things changes. Worship has become a little less sacramental. It's not done at the high altar in full vestments. It's done with a cup of coffee in hand from the country kitchen table in the living room. Much more informal, much more relaxed, and much more cut back, but also at the same time a little bit more liturgical in some cases. So some vicars are getting in the habit of leading morning and evening prayer, especially some of the cathedrals that are doing this kind of every day, rotating between their clergy. You'll perhaps have seen that some of the Catholic churches are doing a formal mass online as well. In all of this, the purchasing and the publishing power of the churches is having a significant global economic impact. There was a flood of YouTube instructional videos as all the worship podcasts and the music publishers tried to offer their own help to get churches online and obviously to get them to use their own platforms to do that. One of the biggest free platforms for getting church online, the Church Online platform run out of Life Church in the US, they reported that something like 23,000 new churches worldwide signed up for their service in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The first Sunday of lockdown in the United States, both Facebook Live and YouTube went down because so many churches were logging on to broadcast their services. Mevo, one of the companies that creates live streaming cameras, has reported a tenfold increase in sales. Of course, not all of them to churches, but if you look at the support forums, you'll see that a significant proportion of them are going into houses of worship. You can't get a webcam anywhere. The lead time for orders for basic video equipment is about 6 months for some of the cheaper low-end stuff. So if you fancy going to church this weekend, you can do it in a variety of ways. You can have morning worship from Australia over breakfast, 11ses with the Bishop of Birmingham's Easter sermon. You can join a US megachurch whilst you're having your dinner, or whilst participating throughout the day in the life of your own faith community online, whilst you're sharing uplifting memes, biblical texts, and typing the occasional amen or other similar comment into the Facebook live stream so your minister knows you're still watching and listening to her too. There's a huge amount going on. There's tons of choice. And when we return to whatever the new normal will be, it'll be really interesting to see how this impacts the way people go back to doing church in buildings. So will we still need those buildings? Well, yes, absolutely. Those buildings are important physical symbols. They're important places of gathering. But they're also the base for so much of the work that places the church at the heart of the community. Projects with, for instance, parents and toddlers, senior citizens, youth, the food banks, the education and training ministry of the church. And the new technological literacy that some of our clergy now have will mean that we do some of that differently in the new normal. But we'll still need a base to do it from, so the spire won't be coming down anytime soon. At a time of uncertainty and insecurity, people are finding hope in their faith. And to me, who happens to be a Christian as well as an academic, it's important that the church steps up to help people and to provide comfort, prayer, and practical support. It's exciting to see so many congregations pushing their own boundaries to try to help their communities in this way. So thanks for listening. Let us know in the comments below if you'll be attending church online this weekend and where. I'm going to get back to recording my Good Friday sermon. Happy Easter.